Over 100,000 Ontarians living with intellectual disabilities are currently in trouble. That includes Live, Work, Play here in Ottawa and other agencies that support the community around the province. They haven't received an increase in base funding in 3 decades, despite a 60% cost in living over the course of those years. They say that and more needs to change as they are currently in a financial crisis. Keenan Wellar is the co-leader and director of communications with Live, Work, Play here in Ottawa. He joins me this morning to talk about this. Good morning, Keenan. Thanks so much.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And I know normally we're talking about a little lighter topics, but this is obviously a huge concern right now across the province. There's a funding shortage. It's making it tougher to deliver services. There's been closures of day supports, staffing issues. Is this a system that's in crisis right now?
I think that's fair to say. It's one of the good things about us, our sector. We go about our work quietly and deliver great outcomes. I think if you look to the pandemic and how many sectors were impacted by that, and there were a number of crises, how well we all came together and handled that. It wasn't perfect, but you didn't see a lot of stories about vulnerable people supported by our sector really, being abandoned or not being supported through the pandemic. So I think that was a good historical note on how well we do our work. But, it's just adding up when you go year after year after year. You are losing ground to inflation, and there's more work to do. So it's both of those things together. It's really squeezing people.
And I know even during the course of the COVID pandemic, we were concerned about a lot of agencies, but it feels like perhaps some of the, as you say, more quiet agencies kind of fell under the radar here. When it comes to just the simple funding formula here, I guess from the province, would you like to see some more money added to this immediately?
Yes, and that's why we've got the Five to Survive campaign that's being organized by Community Living Ontario, which supports over 115 of the more than 350 agencies across Ontario with advocacy work at the provincial level. So they've got this going, and we are supporting it as members of that confederation, but also other agencies that are not a part of Community Living Ontario. They are facing the same issues. So we're all very much united on this, that we need a base funding or core budget increase. And I do want to say we really appreciate, during the pandemic, the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services of the current government provided frontline staff with a $3 an hour wage increase, which was great. But, just looking at even that benefit to organizations, it didn't do anything to help us with all the costs of having staff or every other cost that's gone up, everything from insurance to computers. Yeah, everyone knows all of these things, but all of our costs are going up year after year after year after year, and we never get a base budget increase to help with that. So there's no solution to that other than you stop doing things or you can't hire staff. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Or services become, less effective in their delivery. But just in terms of that base funding, as I mentioned, you're looking for a 5% increase to the base funding here. But, it seems like that's not really a lot when we talk about, it was probably just 5% in inflation over the past couple of years.
It's not a lot, and I think that's the idea here is let's get something reasonable and feasible in the short term, and then really the part of the Five to Survive plan is, and then let's sit down and have a real conversation about sustainability, because we can't wait another 30 years and ask for 5%. Obviously, we're way behind the 8 ball at this point. So it's Five to Survive for a reason. It's just to survive. It gives us a chance to breathe, and then we can sit down. Let's have a conversation. Let's finally support this sector. Let's index to inflation. Let's take some kind of steps that will prevent this sort of crisis from recurring, because our work has only gotten more difficult. Like every other sector, we're impacted by issues related to lack of housing and access to housing, for example. So a typical person that we would be supporting, their monthly income would be about $1,300, and that's based on their Ontario Disability Support Program pension, because unemployment is about 80% for this population. So for many, that pension is their only income. And we know in Ottawa, right, that if you could find a one-bedroom for $1,800, you're doing pretty good. So they're at minus $500 to start the month without any food, clothes, transportation. So we're in the business also of, preventing homelessness and dealing with people who don't have enough to eat. So it's gotten really complicated, more work to do, and no money to do it.
And it makes even more sense. The 5 to survive is a very real scenario for many people here. And you kind of go beyond that in solutions as well. It's not just that 5% base funding, but also staffing has been an issue, among other things.
I mean, this is a people business. So if you look at the various 5 to survive, media postings and interviews across the province, this is the continuous issue is we need staff, and we need staff who stay on the job. It's a relationships business. So if we're just constantly, hiring people, it does not serve people well. It takes a long time to learn how to do this job well. You're dealing with the health system. You're dealing with police. There's so much to learn, and we need people to stay. It's really painful when we develop wonderful staff members and they leave for other sectors where they have not had 30 years of stagnant base funding. It's only natural. People have to look after themselves. So we're losing out to education, health, and other sectors where they have a little bit more of a systemic approach to staying ahead of inflation.
And that systemic approach is actually something you want the province to do, right? You'd like them to put together a blue ribbon task force to kind of look at what's a sustainable funding model for this sector.
That would be wonderful. I mean, this is just not, it's not in our nature to be doing this sort of advocacy. We want to advocate for the advancement of inclusion in the community for people with intellectual disabilities. This is not what we want to be doing, but we can't do our work if we don't have the funds to keep the lights on. So that's where we're at. We want to not be doing that and just go back to going about doing great work quietly, but we need the funding to do that.
Yeah, no kidding. And we know the great work that Live Work Play does here in Ottawa. Keenan, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And that is Keenan Wellar. He's with Live Work Play here in Ottawa, who helps community living here in our region. Your thoughts welcome at 580-580. Tweet us at CFRA Ottawa.